Everyone calls this guy a complete failure, but there's one problem. He's the only person in the world who can steal curses, and right now, the fate of humanity depends on that one ability. The story starts with him trying to steal the curse that's slowly killing Lord Arthur. While he's focused on the curse, two girls behind him keep mocking him, calling him useless and telling him to hurry up. He doesn't even react. He just says he's already doing everything he can. Then we learn why everyone treats him like this. He was born into the powerful Valheim family, but despite that, everyone considers him a failure. The only thing he has is a unique skill called Black Hood, which lets him steal curses that nobody else can touch. At the same time, humanity's last hope is a group called the Blue Sky Generation. They're the heroes standing against world erosion, the disaster that's slowly destroying everything. Back on the battlefield, Arthur is barely holding on. The others rush to help him with potions while another knight looks into the sky and freezes. A rider wearing black armor with a skull-like face appears on a black horse. Just seeing him is enough to make everyone lose hope. She can't believe they're expected to fight something like that with so few people. The others immediately gather around Arthur, worried about his condition. But hearing Arthur's name only makes our guy laugh. He's completely confused about what Arthur is even trying to do. Arthur calmly announces he's about to finish everything. Hearing that, the guy realizes Arthur is planning something insane. He hopes cutting off this world will at least stop Ruin from getting what it wants. As everyone walks through a battlefield covered in corpses, he finally loses his patience. He calls Arthur out for all the sacrifices that were made just because Arthur kept making reckless choices. Before Arthur can answer, Princess Ephania shuts him down immediately. She calls him trash and says Arthur did nothing wrong. Someone like him has no right to lecture the greatest hero alive. That only makes him angrier. He laughs and reminds her who actually saved her countless times. Without his curse-stealing ability, she would have never made it this far in the first place. Then he turns toward Abella, the Red Witch of the Blue Sky Generation. He reminds her that every time she couldn't even use magic because of dangerous curses, he was the one stealing them. Instead of gratitude, she only remembers him attacking her while she was suffering from those curses. To her, his attitude never changed. He always ignored everyone around him. Next comes Mary Diana, the Empire's strongest spear. She says he's always been reckless, impossible to understand, and constantly forced everyone else to clean up after him. Even after sacrificing one of her eyes because of his curse stealing, she still ended up being called useless by everyone. Helping him only brought her pain. Another girl reminds him of the Academy days. Because he belonged to the Starling Kingdom faction, he constantly targeted and bullied her. Back then, everyone laughed at him anyway, calling him the biggest failure in the Valheim family. Even after everything, she still healed his damaged eye because he was the only remaining member of the Blue Sky Generation who could still save the world. That only leaves him even more confused. He asks why everyone abandoned him, called him a disgrace, and then suddenly expected him to become humanity's last hope. Just then, Arthur reaches out his hand. He reminds him that despite everything, he always stood on the front lines with the Blue Sky Generation. Arthur says he finally made up his mind. This time, he'll fight alongside him, but before he can understand what Arthur really means, someone else interrupts. She tells Arthur it's already too late. This world has already reached its end. Arthur asks what she's talking about. Her answer changes everything. This isn't the first time I've watched the world die. She reveals that her ability is regression. Every time the world is destroyed, she goes back in time with all of her memories. On top of that, her memory inheritance skill lets 3 other people keep their memories too. The plan is simple. Start over. With experience, avoid every mistake, and stop world erosion before it reaches this point. Crash immediately realizes what that means. If the strongest people all return to the beginning, this world might actually survive. But then another question hits him. What about me? She tells him he's still necessary. His Black Hood isn't just another curse ability. It's the only power capable of stealing curses that nobody else can even touch. Without him, several impossible situations stay impossible. Crash isn't buying it. He asks why they can't just send back a healthy version of him instead of dragging along someone whose body and mind are already falling apart. At this point, he feels less like a teammate and more like a disposable tool. One of the girls casually tells him they'll probably find some use for him in the next world. That answer completely breaks him. Crash calls out to Arthur one last time. He reminds him that when everyone in the Blue Sky Generation abandoned him, Arthur never stood beside him either. If they're really leaving this world behind, then they should take him with them. Nobody answers. They simply walk away. Watching them disappear, Crash realizes something. His life ended long before the world did. That's when he makes the biggest gamble of his life. Black Hood doesn't just affect curses. Under the right conditions, it can interfere with skills too. He's never dared to use it on Arthur before, but now he has nothing left to lose. He activates Black Hood. At the same time, Arthur turns around after hearing someone call his name. She smiles, thinking Crash still hasn't given up. Crash stares straight at Arthur and finally says what's been buried inside him all this time. Arthur left him behind in a dying world because he was no longer useful. He's lived with that feeling over and over again. But this time, it's Arthur's turn. Arthur actually laughs and asks if Crash has finally gone insane. Before anyone can react, the sky suddenly changes. A mysterious rider wearing black armor and a skull-shaped helmet appears on a black horse. Even Arthur freezes for a second. Crash quietly says, "Maybe I have." The mysterious writer looks at Arthur and says that if humanity can't save this world themselves, then he'll save it instead. The next second, everything goes white. Crash suddenly opens his eyes and gasps for air. He's lying inside a small room that he recognizes instantly. This isn't the battlefield. This is the house where he spent his childhood. He touches his own face in disbelief. His body feels much younger. Just moments ago he was dying in the freezing cold, but now it's the middle of summer. Then it finally hits him. His final gamble actually worked. Instead of stealing a curse, he stole Arthur's regression. Crash stares at his younger hand, still trying to process what just happened. There's no way around it. He really went back in time. Then a message appears in front of him. Black Hood can now be used without triggering world destruction. But there's a catch. To steal someone's skill, the target has to meet an absurd condition. They need to possess nearly 1% of the world's total wealth and be powerful enough for Black Hood to recognize them. Crash can't help but laugh. Of course, a broken ability would come with ridiculous requirements. Back in the future, one of the girls notices something strange. She knows Black Hood is activated, but Arthur doesn't have the usual lock that appears when a curse is being stolen. Crash suddenly understands why. Arthur isn't resisting. The Hero King has already decided to give up his regression. Even someone asks Arthur to think one more time, but Arthur looks completely exhausted. He's accepted that carrying the burden of saving the world over and over again has finally reached its limit. Crash realizes the ugly truth. Regression was never a blessing. It was a curse. Arthur planned to pass his memories to the other three so they could continue fighting without him. But for some reason, Crash was included in that plan too. And because Black Hood can interfere with skills, Crash knows exactly what's about to happen. Arthur is about to lose regression forever, which also means when the meteor rain begins and the blue sky nights fall, Arthur dies for good. Crash clenches his fist. After everything he'd done for them, they still treated him like trash. He spent his entire life stealing curses that no one else could touch, suffered through unimaginable pain, and still got abandoned the moment he stopped being useful. Then he looks into a mirror. Instead of the broken man from the battlefield, a 10-year-old boy stares back at him. He's small, but his body is already well trained from years of sword practice. This is Azure Pine Manor, the place where every failed member of the Valheim family gets sent, then another memory returns. At 10 years old, every member of the Valheim family takes part in the proving ceremony, where they're chosen by a god and receive their future talent. Crash never received anything. No god chose him. Labeled talentless from birth, he was thrown out of the main house and exiled to Azure Pine Manor with the other failures. But this time, he already knows exactly how the world ends. And if he can't stop world erosion before it starts, he'll die all over again. Just then, footsteps echo behind him. Young Master Crash, what are you doing out here? Crash slowly turns around. Standing there is Arito, the loyal butler who in the previous timeline poisoned him at the age of 14. The man who taught him what betrayal really felt like, and seeing him alive again changes everything. Crash freezes for a second. In his last life, Arito was the man who poisoned him at 14 and taught him what betrayal really looked like. But right now, Arito is still alive, standing in front of him like nothing ever happened. Before Crash can say anything, another memory comes rushing back. His older half-sister, Charlotte Valheim, is already making a name for herself as the family's greatest genius. Knights can't even force her to move a single step during training, and everyone believes she's the reason the Valheim family has nothing to fear anymore. At the same time, his older brother Barokin isn't happy at all. He calls Crash a disgrace and says the family would have been better off without him. Then he secretly hands Arito a bottle of poison. The offer is simple. Poison Crash, and Barokin will pay for Arito's sick daughter's treatment and wipe out all his debts. Arito refuses immediately. He says Crash is like family to him, and there's no way he can do something like that. Barokin doesn't care. He reminds Arito that his daughter is dying, and if he keeps protecting someone else's child, he'll lose his own. In the previous timeline, that pressure eventually broke him. Instead of killing Crash, Arito drank the poison himself. He apologized with his final breath before dying right in front of Crash, unable to live with the guilt. That memory still hurts. So Crash looks straight at him and asks a question that completely catches him off guard. The poison my brother gave you? When were you planning to use it? Arito is completely stunned. What poison? He genuinely has no idea what Crash is talking about. Crash realizes this happens before everything fell apart. He calmly tells Arito that he knows about his sick daughter, and if Crash had never been labeled a failure, Arito would have never been forced into that situation. He expected tears, maybe anger, maybe guilt. Instead, Arito silently follows him without saying a word. Crash notices and asks why he's still behind him. Arito only thinks one thing. Young Master, you've completely changed. Crash heads straight for the Valheim library without explaining anything. Arito is completely confused, out of all places. Why the library? Then Crash gives him a strange order. Cut this wall. Arito hesitates for a second, but as a butler serving the Valheim family, breaking through a wall like this isn't difficult. One clean swing of his sword and the entire section splits open. Crash smiles. Nice cut. Good job. Arito can only stare at him. This doesn't feel like the same young master he served yesterday. Behind the broken wall sits an old iron door covered in heavy chains. The moment Crash sees it, memories come flooding back. He remembers living here as a child, and he also remembers this entire place eventually burning to the ground before the world ended. This time, he arrived before all of that happened. Arito quietly asks if he should cut the chains too. Crash immediately stops him. "No, I'll open it myself." He activates Black Hood. The chains don't break. Instead, the lock unlocks on its own. Arito is left speechless. Crash casually shakes his hand and jokes that at least his skill hasn't gotten rusty, then he drops another bombshell. He admits he still hasn't formed a contract with any god, yet somehow he already possesses this ability, and if Arito wants to report everything that happened today to the family head, he's free to do it, but Arito doesn't move. Yesterday, Crash looked like someone who had already given up on life. Today, he's acting like a completely different person. Arito starts wondering if this is what happens when someone from the Walheim bloodline finally awakens their true potential. Instead of reporting him, Arito makes a promise: "As long as you haven't finished what you're trying to do, I won't tell anyone." Hearing that, Crash quietly smiles. The future is already changing. His regression isn't just giving him another chance, every decision he changes is creating a completely different timeline, and if he can save Arito's daughter before it's too late, he knows Arito will stand beside him. Crash's next priority is the place hidden behind that door. The moment he steps inside, a blinding light fills the room. Even Crash is shocked. He's stolen countless curses before, and every single one gave him the same skin-crawling feeling. This room gives off that exact same sensation. That means he found the hidden library. As he looks around, an old book immediately catches his attention. It's a secret record from the Blue Pine Pavilion, filled with memories and techniques left behind by the Walheim family's failed ancestors. The strange part is, these aren't blessings from gods, they're techniques created entirely by humans. Crash realizes this library wasn't always hidden. Long ago, anyone in the family could enter it, but after one particular incident, it was sealed away forever. And that incident was connected to one man, Valheis Damaris Valheim, the greatest failure in Valheim history. At least, that's what everyone believed. In reality, Damaris was eventually consumed by world erosion and became one of the strongest people the family had ever produced. His strength reached a level where even the strongest powerhouses couldn't stand against him. Crash immediately grabs the book. Half of its pages are burned away, but the remaining pages describe a forbidden technique known as extreme blood poison, a power capable of pushing someone to unbelievable heights. Crash finally understands something. Damaris didn't fail because he was weak. He lost control. His own power eventually consumed him, but Crash isn't scared. He remembers how helpless he became whenever World Erosion's curse weakened his body. If he can steal that curse, then maybe he can turn it into his own strength. Maybe he can become even stronger than Damaris himself. Without wasting another second, Crash calls Arito over. From now on, nobody is allowed to enter this hidden library, no exceptions. Arito doesn't question the order, he simply nods. "As you wish, young master." Arito immediately follows Crash's order. On his way out, he goes straight to Barokin. Barokin assumes Arito came to accept the deal, but instead, Arito rejects the offer without even thinking about it. That instantly pisses Barokin off. He can't believe Arito would choose a useless failure like Crash over the future of his own daughter. Barokin signals one of his servants and gives him a new mission. "Go to Azure Pine Manor. I want to know exactly what Crash is doing." The servant heads there immediately, but he never gets inside. Arito blocks the entrance and makes it clear that nobody is entering the manor without Crash's permission, not even if the order comes from the family head himself. Meanwhile, Crash locks himself inside the hidden library. Days pass. He throws himself completely into training using the techniques he found there. Eventually, he finally breaks through. Crash reaches the expert rank. The moment he walks outside, Arito is already waiting for him. He congratulates Crash on reaching expert rank so quickly. Crash just shrugs like it isn't a big deal, then asks why Arito has been waiting outside this whole time. Arito delivers unexpected news. "Young master, Lady Bianca has arrived." Crash immediately recognizes the name, Bianca Hardenhard, his fiancée. A political marriage arranged between two noble families. But that's not what worries him. In the future, Bianca becomes one of the leaders responsible for bringing the world to the brink of destruction. She was born carrying the terrifying curse called Snow White, and because of it, even her own family treated her like a monster. Crash stays silent for a moment. He already knows stealing Bianca's curse could completely change the future. But if he interferes too early, everything could spiral out of control. He takes a deep breath and looks at Arito. "Prepare my clothes." Arito smiles. "Right away, young master." A few moments later, everything is ready. Crash looks toward the door. It's finally time to meet Bianca again.